In the sprawling suburban expanse of Albuquerque, New Mexico, nestled among the sun-bleached mesas and quiet cul-de-sacs, lay the Crestwood Gardens condominium complex. It was a tidy collection of single-story homes, their stucco facades glowing warmly under the desert sun, arranged around lush courtyards and meandering pathways. The residents of Crestwood Gardens were a diverse bunch of retirees basking in the calm of their later years, young couples planting roots, and everyone in between. They cherished the manicured lawns, the whispering cottonwood trees, and the unspoken promise of tranquility that hung in the air. Much of this harmony owed itself to the Homeowners Association, HOA, a diligent group tasked with keeping the grounds pristine and the rules enforced. But over the past 8 months, a storm had been brewing within this peaceful enclave, stirred by a woman named Evelyn Hart. Evelyn was a striking figure in her late 50s, always clad in crisp blazers and pencil skirts, her ash-blonde hair cut into a severe bob that framed her perpetually furrowed brow. To most of the neighbors, she was the enforcer, a nickname whispered behind closed blinds earned through her relentless policing of the smallest infractions. A slightly askew mailbox flag, a porch chair painted a shade too bold, or a sprinkler running 5 minutes past the approved hour all were met with Evelyn's sharp tongue and a photocopied page of HOA bylaws thrust into the offender's hands. She thrived on control, her position on the HOA board inflating her sense of authority. For Evelyn, Crestwood Gardens was her kingdom, and she intended to keep it pristine no matter the cost. Lately, her ire had fixated on a new target, a group of senior residents who had taken to using walking poles during their daily strolls. These weren't the frail, hunched figures one might expect. They were VY Brant men and women in their 60s and 70s, determined to stay active despite the wear of time. The pole's sleek, aluminum aids with rubber tips helped them navigate the gentle slopes of the complex's sidewalks, offering balance and confidence. Every morning at 7:30, they'd gather near the central fountain, their laughter mingling with the soft click-click of poles on pavement as they set off on their rounds. Among them were Clara Bennett, a retired schoolteacher with a quick wit and a recent hip replacement; Leonard Len Russo, a former electrician slowed by a bad back but still spry; Rosa Martinez, a gregarious widow who'd found the poles eased her knee pain; and James Jim Carter, a quiet man with a slight tremor who relied on the poles to steady his steps. They were a tight-knit crew, their walks a blend of exercise, camaraderie, and a chance to soak in the desert sunrise. Evelyn despised the sight of them. To her, the walking poles were an eyesore, a blight on the polished image she envisioned for Crestwood Gardens. "They make us look like a nursing home," she'd mutter to herself, peering out her window as the group passed by. She imagined prospective buyers wealthy, discerning types drive VY-ing through and recoiling at the geriatric parade. Never mind that no rule in the HOA handbook banned such aids. Evelyn was con VY and said they undermined the upscale aesthetic she'd worked so hard to cultivate. She'd tried raising the issue at board meetings, arguing that the poles scratched the sidewalks or posed a tripping hazard, but the president, Tom Delgado, a laid-back retiree with a penchant for compromise, brushed her off. "They're not hurting anyone, Evelyn," he'd said, his tone firm but kind. "Let's not make mountains out of molehills." Rebuffed but undeterred, Evelyn decided to take matters into her own hands. If the board wouldn't act, she'd rid the complex of the poles herself. She began watching the seniors' routines with the precision of a hawk, noting where they left their poles during breaks. Most kept them close, stashing them inside their units, but a few grew careless. Clara and Rosa, for instance, often propped theirs against the wall of the mailroom while sorting letters or chatting with neighbors. Lynn sometimes left his near the community garden shed while he watered his tomato plants. Evelyn saw her chance a quiet, calculated sabotage. Her first move came on a breezy Thursday afternoon. Clara and Rosa had just finished their walk, their poles leaning against the mailroom's exterior as they lingered over a conversation about Rosa's grandson's latest soccer game. Evelyn, pretending to check her own mailbox, lingered nearby, her eyes darting around. The coast was clear. With a swift, practiced motion, she snatched the poles and tucked them under her arm, striding toward the complex's dumpster behind the maintenance shed. The heavy lid creaked as she lifted it, and with a satisfying thunk, the poles disappeared beneath a pile of trash bags. Her pulse raced, not with guilt, but with a twisted thrill. One step closer to perfection, she whispered, brushing her hands clean. That evening, Clara returned to retrieve her poles and froze. "Rosa, they're gone," she said, her voice tinged with disbelief. They searched the mailroom, the nearby benches, even the bushes, nothing. Word spread among the seniors, a ripple of confusion turning to unease. Who'd steal walking poles? Len wondered aloud, scratching his graying beard. They're not exactly gold bars. Jim, ever the pragmatist, suggested they'd been misplaced, but the group's gut told them otherwise. Someone had taken them. Evelyn struck again 2 days later. Len had left his poles by the garden shed while he wrestled with a stubborn hose. She swooped in, her heart pounding with the audacity of it, and dumped them in the same dumpster, burying them deep under coffee grounds and wilted lettuce. She imagined Len's frustration, the seniors' growing dismay, and smiled to herself. They'll give up soon, she thought. No poles, no problem. But sabotage has a way of unraveling. The seniors weren't as fragile as Evelyn assumed. Clara, with her teacher's tenacity, rallied the group. "This isn't random," she declared at their next morning meetup, her hands planted on her hips. "Someone's targeting us." Rosa nodded, her dark eyes flashing. "And I'll bet my last tamale it's Evelyn Hart. She's been glaring at us for months." They had no proof, only suspicion, but it was enough to spark a plan. They'd catch her or at least stop her. Their first move was to tighten security. They stopped Leah VYing poles unattended, locking them in their units or carrying them everywhere, even to the mailbox. But Clara had a bolder idea. "Let's take this to the HOA, she said. "We'll demand cameras, make it official that we can use our poles without hassle." The group agreed, and over the next week, they drafted a petition. "We, the residents of Crestwood Gardens, request security cameras in communal areas and formal HOA support for the use and storage of walking aids, free from theft or harassment." They canvassed the complex, knocking on doors with a mix of determination and charm. To their surprise, support poured in not just from seniors, but from younger families too. "My dad uses a cane," one woman said, signing with a flourish. "I'd be furious if someone messed with it." Within days, they had over 120 signatures. Meanwhile, Evelyn's confidence grew with each theft. She nabbed Jim's poles from a bench where he'd rested them during a phone call, tossing them into the dumpster with a flourish. She was winning, she thought, until fate intervened. Late one Tuesday, a maintenance worker named Miguel was rummaging through the dumpster, hunting for a lost wrench. His flashlight caught a glint of metal beneath a pile of trash. Frowning, he pulled out a pair of walking poles, then another, and another 5 sets in all, battered and smeared with grime. "What the hell?" he muttered, hauling them to the maintenance office. His supervisor, Sophia, recognized them instantly. "These belong to the seniors," she said, her voice tight with anger. She called Tom Delgado, who arrived within the hour, his usual calm replaced by a steely resolve. "This is vandalism," he said, examining the poles. "Someone's gone too far." Word of the discovery raced through Crestwood Gardens, igniting outrage. The seniors felt V-wine dicatted here was proof of their suspicions. Clara and Rosa retrieved their poles, though they were too filthy to use. Jim's pair was mangled beyond repair. "We need that emergency meeting," Len said, his voice low but firm. "Now." The HOA convened on a tense Saturday morning in the rec room, its folding chairs filled with residents of all ages. Tom opened with a grave announcement. Multiple walking poles were found in the dumpster. "This is theft, plain and simple." Clara stood, her voice steady as she recounted the disappearances, hinting at a resident with a grudge, without naming Evelyn outright. Rosa presented the petition, now boasting 150 signatures, and the room erupted in applause. A young father added, "My kid saw his grandma lose her walker to a thief once. This hits home." The support was overwhelming. Evelyn, seated near the back, felt the walls closing in. She rose, her voice syrupy with feigned concern. "I'm appalled by this," she said, clutching her pearls. "But let's not jump to cameras everywhere. Maybe people should just watch their things." Her words fell flat, met with skeptical glances. Another board member, Diane Lopez, countered, "We owe our seniors safety and respect. I move to approve the petition." The vote was unanimous. Cameras would be installed, walking aids officially protected, and penalties set for interference. Evelyn's face was a mask of stone as the room cheered. Her plan had backfired spectacularly, but the real twist was yet to come. News of the sabotage reached a local outdoor gear shop, Peak Pulse, through a friend of Len's who worked there. The manager, a burly ex-hiker named Greg, saw an opportunity. "We'll donate new poles," he told his staff. "Top of the line, adjustable ones for every senior who lost theirs and anyone else who wants a pair. Let's turn this mess into something good." He contacted the newly formed Crestwood Seniors Pole Crew, as they dubbed themselves, and offered not just gear, but a free workshop on pole walking techniques. The seniors were floored. "New poles? For free?" Rosa exclaimed, clapping her hands. They met with Greg, hammering out details. On a bright Saturday, Peak Pulse rolled into Crestwood Gardens with a truckload of gleaming carbon fiber, lightweight, with ergonomic grips. Volunteers set up tables under the cottonwoods, and residents flocked to the scene. Clara tested a pair, marveling at their sturdiness. Len adjusted his straps with a grin, saying, "These beat my old ones by a mile." Even younger folks joined in, curious about the buzz, and soon over 50 sets were claimed. Greg's team taught proper form how to plant poles for balance, how to stride with confidence. By midday, the complex buzzed with chatter and laughter, a spontaneous celebration of resilience. Evelyn watched from her window, her stomach churning. Poles were everywhere, now black, blue, silver, wielded by seniors and newcomers alike. Her sabotage hadn't just failed, it had multiplied her nightmare. She stayed inside, stewing in silence, as the community embraced what she'd tried to erase. In the weeks that followed, Crestwood Gardens transformed. The cameras went up, a quiet deterrent. The seniors' pole crew grew, their morning walks now a parade of 15 or 20, joined by younger residents testing their own poles. Claire started a weekly clinic, teaching newcomers the ropes. Rosa and Jim explored longer routes, venturing to a nearby arroyo. The click-click of poles became the soundtrack of the complex, a symbol of defiance and unity. Evelyn retreated, her influence waning. She avoided board meetings, her once loud voice muted. One evening, Diane approached her doorstep. "Why not join us, Evelyn?" she said, half teasing. "You might like it." Evelyn bristled, muttering about not needing crutches, but the seed was planted. Then came the day she couldn't ignore. A neighbor, Margaret, an elderly woman with a walker, struggled with a bag of groceries outside Evelyn's unit. Without thinking, Evelyn stepped out, taking the bag. "Thank you," Margaret said, smiling. "These new poles I got thee been a godsend." Evelyn nodded stiffly, a pang of something guilt stirring within her. Peak Pulse capped the saga with a community hike on a crisp November morning. 60 residents caravanned to a nearby trail, poles in hand. Greg led them through sandy paths, the seniors beaming as they conquered gentle hills. Evelyn tagged along, pole-less, lingering at the rear. When she stumbled on a rock, Clara and Rosa steadied her, chuckling, a pole might have helped. She flushed, but thanked them, their kindness piercing her armor. At the trail's end, as photos snapped and laughter rang out, Margaret found her again. "You're welcome with us, Evelyn," she said softly. "Poles or not." Evelyn's throat tightened. I misjudged this," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "I am sorry." It wasn't a full confession, but it was enough. By winter, Crestwood Gardens threw a tapestry of walkers young and old, bound by a shared rhythm. Evelyn never took up polls, but she stopped fighting them. The click-click no longer grated. It was the sound of a community she'd unwittingly helped forge. From her petty crusade, a legacy of strength had risen, pro-VYing that even the smallest acts of malice could bloom into something beautiful. If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this VY Deo with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next VY Deo.